Hello, welcome back. This is my second time making this video. Basically what happened is I got a new microphone and then my husband was home. So I think I just was not talking loud enough because I turned the volume all the way up in my video editing software and then I also turned it all the way up on my phone and I just could not hear anything and then it was just really staticky. So we're just gonna redo it. What I've decided is that instead of doing a singular video on Molka by Monika Kim, which I had originally planned to do, I'm actually just gonna go ahead and put it in with like my mid-year freakout because I'm just not as excited to talk about it because I think it's because I read it in February because I had gotten an arc. And like I've just been like waiting and waiting and waiting to talk about it to the point where it's just like I've read better books since then. Unfortunately, I'm so sorry. It's still a really, really good book and I still really do recommend it. I'm just gonna put it in here instead of doing its own video. A little boy has appeared. This is Francis. Do you have anything to say? Very insightful. Very nice. So we're gonna be doing this in like least liked to most liked. And the first one that was not the cream of the crop was The Definitions by Matt Greene. And now I was like really excited to read this one. I think part of my disappointment was because I hyped myself up so much about it. So there's a facility that is in charge of rehabilitating these people who are not children and not elderly specifically. Basically, they got like a virus that took all of their memories away, like language, who they are, like the fundamentals of being a person. And they are trying to reteach this to them either until they get their memories back or until they are able to reintegrate into society. I just thought it was gonna do more than it did. It's labeled as a dystopia, and I did see a couple of people mention it as like a comp to I Who Have Never Known Men, which was my favorite book last year, by the way. I really don't see that at all. So, firstly, it's a dystopia, right? I don't think so. It gives you like little tiny, here's a little clue, things aren't as they seem. But then the narrator really just is not curious enough to look more into it. That's where I don't think that this was like I Who Have Never Known Men at all. Because in Jacqueline Hartman's novel, there's a point for the vagueness. Like, we literally don't know anything more about what's going on. The characters don't know anything. They did not figure anything out. Whereas in the definitions, there is stuff to look into and stuff that I don't think you should ignore. But again, the narrator does not give a fuck, honestly. And it was really telling when the narrator literally has like a friend that is obviously being targeted by the facility for looking into these things. Like, he comes to them and expresses his thoughts, and then immediately after, he's like missing from a bunch of the classes. He's late for stuff. He keeps getting in trouble because of how much stuff they're giving him to do to like exhaust him and overwhelm him from seeking further answers. But the narrator just tells you what's going on and there is no deeper thought to it, like at all. And that, I think, is like the crux of why I don't like this novel. If the narrator doesn't care, why should I? You are teased with this information and then the narrator has no motivation to pursue any kind of knowledge or truth of their lived situation. No, their main focus in this novel is Maria, a girl who is their bunkmate. And with this, I actually, like in the middle, got my hopes up again a little bit when the narrator has these feelings for Maria throughout. They have this big fight, and then Maria calls the narrator a she, right? So this is basically kind of a point where you find out that the narrator is, I guess, biologically female, and they get really, really mad about this, and they get really upset at being called a girl. And there is some, like, showing that heteronormativity is encouraged, but again, the narrator is so detached from their surroundings that they don't look any further into this. This would have been a great place to have, like, thoughts about what gender actually means and how it relates to the narrator and what they think and how it's different from everyone else in the rehabilitation center. And there's nothing about this. The narrator is mad, and they tell you that. And then they move on. There's no real reason to any of it. This book actually uses a large portion of its introduction telling us the plot of Friends and how the characters are really popular and how people in the facility, because I can't remember who they are, will adopt these characters' names based on who they identify with the most. What is this for? We don't use this for anything else. We, like, get into some of the characters. I get it, but I don't understand. Like, you didn't have to give me that much information. I'm sure most people know something about that show. I can't talk about this anymore. I'm just gonna keep ranting about it. If you're interested, I do have a video on it, because I'm not even getting into how this really does not expand on language at all for being literally called the definitions. Like, watch the other one. I can't get into it, or else this video is going to be way too long. Okay, I'm sorry if the lighting and my camera looks weird. Florence is in the window. I think she sees something. But anyway, so getting into The Unworthy by Augustina Bazterrica. I really hated not to like this one because my sister picked it out for our first book club pick, and because I'd had my eye on it because I had read Tender is the Flesh and liked it pretty good. It's again labeled as a dystopian, but it really just feels more like that's the backdrop of the story. The most information we really get about it is that there's, like, an environmental crisis. I don't know if it's, like, only in their area, all over the world. That's really not important in here. This in itself, I think, would be fine if we were able to find out any other kind of answers about the monastery, but the main setting is within the walls of this area, which is largely unchanged, except for, like, the looming threat of acid rain. This is apparently supposed to be about, like, women hurting themselves in religious spaces for growth that, like, does not benefit them in the long run anyway. In this, though, the women harm each other as sacrifices literally and physically. But in this one, they're just literally hurting each other over and over and over as, like, sacrifices to avoid the acid rain, or for, like, the god, who is the only recurring man in this narrative. They just hurt themselves and each other in more and more horrendous ways, and it kind of just got to the point, kind of like in Tender is the Flesh, where it really just felt like shock value than as something actually to pay attention to. There's even, like, a sapphic element here as well, but even that just, like, doesn't make a lot of sense. I don't know. This one was a hard one for me. I go into more detail again here. Feel free to watch it if you're interested. Honestly, at this point, I really don't remember enough to just talk about it in any capacity anyway, so we're just gonna move on to Restoration by Ave Barrera. So this one was really well liked in my book club, but it really just did not work for me at all. I'm just gonna say it right now, this flew the fuck over my head. I did not understand what was going on. I could not keep up. I could not cognitively follow what was going on at all. It's basically about women getting, like, trapped in cycles of abuse. One perspective is this housewife, I'm assuming in like the 50s ish, who obviously, my cat's moving my camera, who obviously cannot leave her abusive situation due to the time period that she's in. And then there's another point of view from a young woman who has basically like inserted herself into this guy's life and is restoring the house that that woman had lived in because it's his aunt's house. That's what I understood. I think what essentially didn't work for me was like the writing itself. And it is literally about restoring an old property. So there's a lot of like talking about doing that, and I just got really lost. Next, we have A Curse Carved in Bone by Danielle L. Jensen. So like, I finished this one really recently because I hadn't read a romantasy in a while, and I really needed a break from the tense, dark, reflective, sad, mysterious, emotional books that I've been reading, and this one did not lift my spirits. This is the second of a duology. Side note, thank fucking God it's a duology. I cannot tell you how sick I am of book series being like 7 books. Do you actually have enough to say for 7 full novels, especially with how fucking big they're getting? So with this one, I read the first book and I really, really liked it. It is a Norse-based mythology where like some people are born with like drops of godly blood that gives them a power of that god. I had been so excited to read the second book that I bought it immediately as a little birthday gift when it came out, and it's been sitting on my shelf for like 2.5 years because I was so scared of it like ruining the first book for me, as sequels sometimes tend to do. At that time, I was like taking a break and have been in a break from the romantasy genre just because it was getting really repetitive, and I'm not gonna lie, Jennifer L. Armentrout kind of fucking ruined it for me. So as you can see over here, I really enjoyed her novels. And I say enjoyed because I have not read a book that she has come out with since she released book 5 of the From Blood and Ash series. And that is because book 5 is not a book that continues the actual plot of the story. It's the first book from Castiel's perspective. And if you're going to do that, can you not fucking do it after the series is over? It just really made me mad. And then also, I was getting really fed up with the books anyway, like even in the third book, because her whole thing is like retconning information and then giving you the true version, and then Poppy going up a power level, essentially. And so, like, at the end of the 4th book, I just, like, this is fantasy, and I could not suspend my disbelief anymore. Like, she is literally so powerful that I don't feel any fucking tension for what's going on at all. And I've not read anything because I just can't be bothered to just go through it again. Also because, like, in the first book, so there's Freya, who is originally like a fisherman's wife, who has this ability that is in a prophecy to give whoever controls her the ability to become king over everyone in their area. So her love interest is Bjorn, and so they kind of have this like forbidden love type chemistry going on, which I really like. She is forcibly married to his dad, who is the Jarl, and Bjorn is assigned to basically look after her. And so it's like they're forbidden because she's married to his dad. But they have this like really enticing like chemistry that I really liked. It was insta flirty, but I will say I did appreciate that it is more of a slow burn than you would tend to see with this genre. It took a while for them to actually act on that attraction. I also really enjoyed it because the characters, they felt like they had depth to them. Like Freya is really brash, and she will literally put herself in harm's way to protect anyone she deems as innocent or powerless. It was really compelling because, spoiler, I'll give you a second, but this book has been out for a while. She has a second drop of godly blood. Not only does she have like this Bella from Twilight shield thing going on, she also has the ability to drag people to hell. They can't do anything about it. It's like an insta wipe. It was just so like interesting to have a character like grappling with the fact that she could be the literal end of humanity, because in the prophecy it does have that she will wipe out like an army. The second book literally stripped them of all of these qualities. He becomes so overly guilt-ridden that he's a little pathetic. And I am not going to like sit here and tell you that I don't enjoy a little bit of groveling, a little bit of being pathetic for the woman you love. He does this, I'm not even joking, for the entire fucking book. It just becomes really annoying after a while. It just was not satisfying at all. Not only this, but Freya also holds this grudge in like a really childlike way and then drops it like a fucking hat after one conversation with his mom. It literally makes them feel like completely different people. My biggest gripe with this is going to be like a major spoiler for the second book, so just skip to this time if you want to read this. But basically, Bjorn, okay, so they're on a ship, they're facing the entire of her husband and his father's army, who is people that Freya has grown up with. Bjorn makes her use Hell's magic on the entire fucking fleet, when the plan had been to only do that to Snorri. And so like previously, almost any time that she uses this ability, she like vomits. She feels so much guilt because she shouldn't be the one deciding if they go to like their version of like heaven or hell. I would imagine this event like floored her. Like I would be immobile, you know, with her characterization. That is what I expected. This is not what happens. Instead, immediately after, we get an amazing twist. Like I was not expecting that at all. That was great. I don't know why we couldn't have just done more of that. But basically, immediately after she wipes this entire army of people that she knows, they get stuck in like this bubble, like a ward bubble that they can't leave, just out in the open. Bjorn sets trees on fire to get people's attention to try and come and help them. They have no conversation about what the fuck he made her do, and they fuck. That's the only sex scene besides like the epilogue, which does not count, in the whole book. It just took me completely out of it. It's not the time, for one. You're trying to get people to help you by setting trees on fire. And for two, you literally sent an entire population of people you know to hell. Like, I'm actually, like, floored about it still. I cannot believe that. They have no conversation about it at all. Oh, and then, not to mention, one of those people on that ship is her fucking brother. The only person alive from her immediate family, by the way. She barely gives a fuck about this. She's like, oh yeah, sorry your wife and unborn child are fatherless now. Next up, we have Less Than Zero by Bret, Easton, Ellis. This is the second book by that author that I have read, and I felt like I gleaned like a pretty good amount from it. It's not my favorite one, and it also really reminded me of the Shards, which I have this video here. If you're interested, I'm actually very proud of it. It's also available in an essay form on Substack, which I will also link in the description. This is Bret Easton Ellis's debut novel about a college student who returns home to LA during like Christmas break. And so his friends are just engaging in increasingly more violent and harmful activities. They're all extremely wealthy, so they have that like blanket protection over them. Also, trigger warning for graphic on-page sexual assault of a child. Thankfully, it is very brief. It's one of the worst things I have ever read in my life, so please do keep that in mind. This book is really, really short, and it's written in a very, like, detached, straightforward kind of way, which makes a lot of sense for the character because Clay is extremely passive. Like, there's really not much more to say about this book because I don't want to get into, like, how it's relating to the Shards, really, since I have a whole video on that. So, we're actually just going to move on to the next one, which is another Bret Easton Ellis book, which is American Psycho. American Psycho is one of the most flippantly disgusting, gruesome books I have ever read in my life. Bret Easton Ellis has this like narrative style where he will basically brand name or proper name everything he can, and in this one it was absolutely the most boring, awful thing I've ever put myself through. I don't know what the fuck these clothing items look like based on their names and their cuts, whatever. You're in business suits, which I understand is like part of the characterization of Patrick Bateman being that psychopath and being so obsessed with image and wealth and status. It was just like block pages of it. I got to the point where I was like skimming a lot because it was insistent. And like I had to make myself basically read this in. Do you have something to say? Mm-hmm. I basically had to make myself read this in several short hour bursts, or else I knew I was going to slog through it really bad. So, this novel, in case you haven't heard, Lawrence. So, this novel, if you don't know, is about a serial killer from his point of view. Keep in mind, there is a lot of trigger warnings for this book. Murder of a child on page, animal abuse, violent sexual assault including dismemberment, cannibalism, some really fucked up stuff. Patrick Bateman's main want, other than just brutally murdering people, is to be wealthy, admired, and very powerful. I was also very surprised by how much he idolizes Trump in this book. It's actually fucking constant, which I find really interesting. Throughout the novel, he and his colleagues are like so alike, they're basically a hive mind, to the point where he is constantly being mistaken for someone else in his group or not even in his group. They have a lot of conversations about how to wear their clothes, do their hair. Basically, he kind of goes into this manic sort of spiral, midlife crisis sort of thing, because no matter what, even if he's like literally face to face threatening his elite peers or telling them what he wants to do to women, like beheading them, no one ever comments on or pushes back on what he says, like at all. They usually just don't even have like a reaction to it. It's like he's never said anything. I don't really feel passionate enough about this book to really like dig into some of the stuff I'm interested in. Honestly, I don't want to read this again. I did want to kind of understand like how he basically would select his victims, because there's several times where he just decides not to kill someone for whatever reason. The most interesting one I found was Lewis, who is enthralled with Patrick, and he is under the illusion that they are in like a secret passionate affair. And it's kind of funny because he like threatens him again, but at that point like Lewis just will not listen, to where he just like avoids him for the rest of the book. Let me know if you have any thoughts on that. Next one we have is The Woman Dies by Aoko Matsuda. And this is a very short book collection of 52 short stories, some of which are like single paragraphs or single sentences. I found it fun and enjoyable. I really can't tell you a lot about it because there's 52 stories and I read this a while ago, but I did really like the ending section where the author made some notes and comments about how they came up with some of the ideas of the stories. The only ones that I really remember, there's this one that is from the point of view of the national anthem, and then there's another one that's literally just a letter to Dr. Spencer Reed from Criminal Minds. Also, the cover's really fun and cute, which is kind of why I bought it. Next, we have The Hounding by Xenobe Purvis. And so this one was really interesting in that the subject of the novel is a group of 5 siblings. They're all sisters. They're never given any point of view in the novel. We only get information about them from a second or third source. The closest one we have is from their grandfather, but he also can't give us a lot of information about them because he's literally blind. The book kind of follows the girls throughout the novel as they are accused of turning into dogs. This is spearheaded by the town's local drunk, Pete, who apparently has seen an angel a couple times. I loved the hazy, folktale type setting that this had, and the little interactions that you get to read into. My favorite point of view was the grandfather's. Even though he was blind, his chapters had such beautiful imagery when it came to the other senses, and because he's blind, he's just as much in the dark as the rest of us. It really brought the rest of the book to life for me. And it explores several different themes, so girlhood and the socialization of women and men based on their sex, small town rumors, and the fragility of male ego, not in general, but how it is worked through by Pete. And overall, I really did enjoy this. It's pretty short. The prose is very lyrical and easy to get through. I did have a bit of a different feeling about the ending. If you have read it, let me know how you interpreted it, because I am open to another form of interpretation, I guess, because I know a lot of times I take stuff very literally. Whenever I read the ending of this, it just kind of pissed me off. Next, we have Sunburn by Chloe Michelle Howarth. This one is the perfect summery, sapphic coming-of-age story, and it is so full of intense yearning. It's about growing up queer in Ireland, in a small conservative town, and being afraid of being abandoned by the only life you've ever had because of who you love. So we get to watch these characters grow up together, make bad decisions, and live with those choices, which it did get a little long and grating towards the end, I'll admit, but I really did enjoy it overall. I think it would be perfect to read by the pool, which I unfortunately did not because of how fucking hot it is outside. I honestly don't have that many thoughts on it. It feels like a pretty standard queer story going over themes of sexuality and the anxiety that can come with that, what family means, guilt, etc. Next, we have Molka by Monika Kim. The tension and the intensity in each scene really just pumps up the rest of the book. There were several stalking scenes that really got my heart racing. I kind of think this book is actually part of the reason why I didn't vibe with the Unworthy all that much. Basically what had happened was I was in line at the dispensary, and it was a really, really long line for an event. And I didn't have my physical book with me, so I decided to go ahead and start Molka since it was an arc that I needed to read soon. And if The Unworthy hadn't been a book that my sister had picked out, I would have just fucking dropped it immediately to read Molka because that one had me hooked from the start. It's a dual point of view, and we start with Jun Young, a man working in a company's IT department, but he primarily uses his time checking all of the individual cameras in each individual stall of each woman's bathroom on each floor of the building. So he's pretty busy with that. He eventually becomes infatuated with Dai, the other point of view character. So the lighting's probably different, the camera's probably different again. My script just got deleted somehow, so I had to rewrite it really quick. Anyway, Dai is one of my favorite revenge plot characters. she goes absolutely fucking bonkers insane. And I really love that Monika Kim didn't like hold back with her, I guess. But I will say, like, the revenge aspect plotline's really like the last like 10, 15-ish part of the book. But I really did enjoy it. And I loved seeing I mean, I didn't love it. I felt extremely bad for her. But I really loved following her around and seeing her response to what was happening, because this is a really hard read. Like, Dai is still grappling with the grief over losing her older sister. I believe when the book starts, it's like almost the 5-year anniversary. And so she's feeling like a lot of grief and a lot of guilt over it, which you get to find out why. And then not only that, but she's also like in this relationship with this extremely wealthy, like elite man. And she's kind of like in the vein of like, I can't believe this is my life. I will do whatever it takes to keep it. Even though her boyfriend Hyukjun is extremely like sexually rough with her, and like you can kind of tell what kind of person he is. But she is like, there's no way this is happening to me. Like, she's not wealthy or part of any kind of higher status. Her downward spiral begins when her and Hyukjun are caught having sex from a hidden camera in their hotel room. And so Molka is a term originating in South Korea that basically means like hidden or spy camera, which is a huge problem in South Korean society. I think this is kind of modeled after that Burning Sun scandal. I think it said it was in like 2019. But basically, Hyukjun is told to lay low by his family so the PR team can handle it. And this also includes his communications with Dai. So she wants to figure out where he went. And so she is kind of left to deal with this fallout by herself. I guess luckily her face was blurred, but you kind of get to understand how they even got to that point. Which is like, Hyukjun is kind of like a celebrity type. I don't really know what he does though. This book touches on voyeurism and the lack of real justice for these victims, which are primarily women, how women are prosecuted more viciously for these same crimes, and how this behavior is enabled by men and people with authority and power. I love books that have a focus on voyeurism. It has been one of my favorite topics since I learned about it in my film classes in college. As the book progresses, I do find it a bit more ironic since, reading is kind of an act of voyeurism itself, but it's thrilling to get to see the characters become closer and closer, where one of them is not aware of the other one. Again, Jun Young's main hobby is watching women use the restroom, and he's very comfortable doing it. And it kind of shows you how he became so comfortable in this. And he's not the only one following someone in this book, by the way, which I also thought was really fun. His stalking scenes are not the only ones in this book by far, and I think that was my favorite part, where it's kind of it kind of flips it around a little bit, I guess. I have not read Kim's debut novel, The Eyes Are the Best Part, mostly because I have an eye phobia, but I am really excited to see what she comes out with next, because this one had me hooked, start to finish. There's really not a lot that I had any kind of, issues with. There was, a little bit to do with the dynamic between the sisters, because she has, some flashbacks leading up to what happened to her sister, and the result of it. Next one is Local Heavens by K.M. Fajardo. Yet another dystopian. This one is a retelling of The Great Gatsby in a dystopian setting. It is still from the point of view of Nick. Now, transparency, I have not read The Great Gatsby. I read the Spark Notes in high school because I was too busy at work. And I do think it would be really interesting to read the original after reading this retelling. Whenever I had first finished this one, I felt pretty neutral about it. other than the absolute adoration I have over how these characters interact with one another. But I really haven't been able to get this one out of my head. Like, I find that I keep thinking about these characters and thinking about what happens in the book, and that is why it has jumped up the list a little bit. So essentially, this is from Nick's perspective, except this time he's like a data war hero. I don't really understand it. Basically, it's like you plug your consciousness into the data network to fight off other companies' workers from getting your company stuff. That's just what I imagined. You still have the plot of like Gatsby's glamour, the wealth disparities, him and Daisy and Tom. Like, I still know what happens in The Great Gatsby. I had a class on it. But this one does take more of a modern twist, which I really enjoyed. My favorite part of the book was the absolute magnetism that Nick and Gatsby had together. They had a lot of page time, and it was really interesting his kind of qualms with like the morality of their relationship, because he's very aware of like this wealth disparity. He's also been tasked by his employer to like figure out what Gatsby's company is up to so that they can get like the jump on him. And as he and Gatsby grow closer, and as people are telling him like this is not real, he is not acting in a real manner, like his like emotions towards their relationship as it becomes more intimate was very electrifying, I guess. He does also have a relationship with Jordan, Daisy's best friend, in this novel as well, and that was not diminished by him and Gatsby. I guess what I really wasn't a fan of was the dystopian part yet again. I kind of wish it had just been more than the setting, more with like the actual plot, but it really doesn't get into a lot of it other than like there's people living in slums whose grandchildren are going to be paying off the debt that they're taking on, while Gatsby and everyone in his circle are like doing these insane body modifications and driving flying cars or not driving them and all kinds of that stuff. The dystopian setting was very well integrated. I just wish it had been more with the plot. Oh, and that does make me think of like the very end, which I don't want to spoil for you because I really hope that you read it. I want to figure out how to like hint it without like giving it away. I don't think I can. Please just read it. And if you have, please talk to me about it because I've not been able to talk about it almost at all. This video is getting very long and I'm scared my stuff is going to keep turning off. So I'm going to try and get this wrapped up pretty fast. So next we have Chosen Family. I did get this one as an ARC. I do think it's already been released, but free book. This one again is just like Sunburn. We are watching two queer women fall in love, but it takes a major turn. This one is set in Australia, and we are typically in the point of view of Eve, though sometimes we do get put into like one of the side characters' minds for like a paragraph or so, and then we also follow Nell, the other protagonist, for a little bit. Again, this is about Eve falling in love with Nell as a growing child. Nell is scared of this and scared of this attraction because they are in an all-girls school. It's very not lesbian friendly. Nell is very scared of her feelings and kind of drops her friendship with Eve because of that. But obviously Eve doesn't know that. Eve was told that it was because she's too agreeable. She's basically not her own person, which she was acting that way because Nell and Eve had welcomed a third person in who is obviously trying to get Eve out of the picture and have Nell for themselves. Unfortunately, that worked, but my favorite part of the book was when this character dynamic is flipped. Early childhood Nell held all of the power, because Eve will agree and laugh at anything that she says. This in turn makes her feel like Eve's a fake person, and they drop her friendship for several years. The latter half of the book is Eve basically like forgiving Nell, but not forgetting, if that makes sense. And not really being truthful to either herself or Nell in the process. Nell is very obviously like into Eve, and Eve knows it but will not act on it, and instead like dangles herself in front of Nell. The other interesting aspect of this story is that there is like a present future point of view from Eve, where she's essentially feeling a lot of guilt and a lot of sadness about Nell leaving Eve and their child, like abandoning them, like gone, never coming back. The guilt she feels because it's quite literally her fault. Let me tell you, it gets to a point where you're figuring out what Eve did to make Nell leave. I've never yelled at someone in my brain so long in my life. Like, you fucked up. But I also think, like, that's the fun of having such, like, nuanced and messy and flawed characters, is that it really, like, breaks open their relationship. And I guess I love when, like, queer people can be flawed, and they can be wrong and messy, and they can hurt each other, too. Now, there is a part in here where my jaw literally fucking dropped, and I thought it was gonna go in a very different direction, but I'm really glad that it didn't. I don't want to give it away. Please just go read it if you haven't already. It gets pretty crazy. Okay, number 2 on the list is Rejection by Tony Tulathimutte. And so this one is a short story collection of 5 stories exploring different aspects or angles of rejection. And so, like, for example, in the first one, The Feminist, that is based on a man who is, like, kind of obviously using feminism to, like, lure seems strong, but, like, to get a woman to be with him. And as he's, like, rejected, even though he's spewing all of this feminist rhetoric, he turns, like, the feminist, like, talking points around to victimize himself for these rejections instead of doing, like, any inner working at all. Basically turns into an incel, and you get to see this entire thought process, which was pretty interesting as he begins to, like, identify with incel culture, and he twists that feminist rhetoric to fit his own life. And so, like, there's also another one where it is about a man, like, rejecting his sexual preferences, which are fucking insane. I'm sorry. But basically, he rejects it and has a very hard time, like, holding any kind of, like, intimate relationship because of how specific his, like, needs are. And that one, I can't imagine. I can't imagine what happened after what happened. I can't give it away. These are short stories, so I really can't tell you anymore. But the second one, I can't do it anymore. Please read it. Please just read it. Okay, last book, which I'm not going to get into all of the intricate details because, once again, I have a rather long video about it. Number 1, The Cream of the Crop. One of my favorite books of all time, The Shards by Bret, Easton, Ellis. Now, this one is kind of like an autofiction where Bret Easton Ellis is the narrator, but it's him when he was 17 in his senior year of high school. And so it's like going over his friendships and his relationships and being gay, but upholding this heteronormative outside lifestyle because of the era that he's in. It's set in the it's set in the 80s in LA. Amidst all of that is a serial killer that's targeting him and his friends. And so I just had such a good fucking time reading this. I have never wanted someone to just, like, stop what they're doing so fucking bad, except maybe now from, like, Chosen Family. The absolute fucking fear and paranoia that he has throughout the book, it like grows and grows and grows. And it in turn, like, my breath was shaking. Like, I was like fucking scared of what was going to happen. I just keep thinking about it. Do you know that there's a show coming out soon? And one thing I will say, oh, that's what I was gonna say. So, like, I think the strongest part of this book, not only is it like the autofiction part where it's like what part is real, what part is not real, he already tells us that he, as a storyteller, will embellish anything to make it more interesting, even if it's like from his own life. So it's like, not only are you like looking into like what's real or not real, but it's also like, what is he embellishing? Like, what is he not telling us? And I just had, again, so much fun reading that. I also really loved his writing style. He still has all of like the brand names and the proper names and whatever, but I just felt like it was so much better in this book. It is his newest release. It just made the setting so visceral. Like, I was there. Like, I have never felt more nostalgia for a time period I didn't exist in until I was reading this fucking book. There are literally playlists of like all of the songs that are mentioned in here. He talks about movies, he talks about roads. I just felt like it was so well done. I could picture it so perfectly. Actually, a fucking masterpiece. I'm not even joking. I don't have anything bad to say about it. If you haven't read this, please read that book. Anyway, that's my mid-year wrap-up. I have read another book since finishing up this script. I just finished Paradise Logic by Sophie Kemp, but I think this was like 14 books, which is less than usual, but I'm trying not to really focus on like the number of books I'm reading so that I can read like chunkier stuff. I don't know what video I'm going to make next. I'm going to stop just like telling you what I'm thinking I'm going to make because it's probably not going to happen. I'm so sorry. There's a pattern at this point, and I can't keep doing that to you guys. Let me know if you have read any of these books, what you thought about them. If you disagree with me, I would love to hear about it. Thank you so much for being here and for staying this long. If you haven't, maybe like, maybe subscribe, maybe comment something. So hopefully I'll come out with something again soon if my equipment doesn't mess up again, but we'll see. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you have a good day, and I'll see you in the next one.